Hello everybody, we are going live. Palmistry Q&A. Last episode on Saturday failed miserably. There was no sound, so I'm doing a sound check. If anyone is online, can you please let me know if you can hear me? That would be great, because yeah, it can be a bit hard if you guys can't hear what I'm saying. And you're welcome to say hi. Let me know where you're from. What part of the world are you from? What are you interested in? We'll talk about the thumb today if there is no questions. But it is a palmistry Q&A. I hope you've subscribed to my channel. If you subscribe, you won't miss out on all my videos. I'm about to make another video on my channel, and I'm also planning a live on Jeff Bezos for members only. So if you haven't heard of membership, I have a join button on my channel on YouTube. You can join and become a VIP, so you don't miss out on anything. Get lots of more content, live member streams, personal readings, specific questions, exclusive members only videos, lots of good content and perks. So let me know if you can hear me. Say hi. That would be great. I assume it's working today. Friday was terrible. That was terrible. I had to cancel it. There was something wrong with the system. But anyway, today I will talk about the thumb. We have some viewers online. Let me know if you can't hear me. That would be great. Let me know if it's glitching, because it looks like it's all working in my end. Thanks for joining wherever you come from. Thank you for joining the live chat. I'm going to talk about how palmistry is not just about the lines. Many people think palmistry and they straight away think, oh, lifeline, how long will I live, blah, blah. But palmistry relies a lot on judging the person's character. So it's not about seeing what's going to happen. It's about seeing your character and what's likely to be an event in your life if you apply those characteristics to your life, because our life is based on our personality. If we are an outgoing, extroverted type, we're more likely to be in a career that takes full advantage of that. If we're a quiet, shy type, we're most likely to be in a career that represents our quiet style. And the best way to look at a person's character quickly is just looking at the thumb. So that's one of my first lessons in palmistry, is the hand shape, the finger shapes, finger length, and the thumb. So if you've got my book, my first book is Destiny Palmistry Character Awareness. That's available in PDF on my website. It's available as a Kindle book or a paperback or hardcover from Amazon. So that book explains everything about recognizing the character through a mere glance of the hands. And like I said, the thumb is the first thing that we look at. We can see the thumb because, say, if we shake hands with someone, the thumb is there. You don't want to be ogling at someone's hands, like making it obvious. But if you're shaking hands, you get a feel of their thumb. Is it a big thumb? Is it a long thumb? Is it a teeny tiny thumb? Is it a fat thumb? All those things literally show the personality. We have greetings from Laminjara. Hello, Laminjara. I don't know if I've said your name right. Thanks for joining. Thanks for commenting. That means that you guys can hear me. My sound is working today. That's nice. Yes, so I'm talking about the thumb and how we can recognize, how we can recognize character quickly. So if anyone has questions, everyone is welcome to ask me anything that they like. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Say hi. Don't be shy. So, yes, so the thumb, let's talk about the size of the thumb. So when, for instance, if it's a large and a long thumb, that is someone who is more likely to be extroverted type. They're the outgoing, determined, busy people who have a personality that's more powerful. Somebody who's a judge, a policeman, you know, someone higher up in their field, someone who's a business owner, somebody who's a go-getter has a bigger thumb. They're hardworking and usually intelligent people. Although thumb doesn't really describe intelligence, but the thumb is a more driven person, a large thumb. So if the opposite, if you have a little thumb, you're the more introverted type. You're the quiet, shy type. You have a soft and gentle heart. And you would be in a job like in an office doing accounting, for instance. So how to tell if it's a little thumb? You measure, when you hold your thumb close to the hand, you measure it against the index finger. So if it reaches the first crease on the index finger, that represents an average. It's not short and it's not long. So I have just the average length thumb. A longer thumb will come up higher. A shorter one will come below. And if the thumb is thin, that also represents the more quiet, introverted type. So those things are important when people are asking questions like, what sort of career should I be in? So we look at many things. We look at the fingerprints, we look at all the other hand shape and finger shapes, but the thumb quickly tells if you should be in a career that requires more leadership, or if you're in a career that requires you to do your job quietly in an office environment, for instance, or if you like to be by yourself, or if you like to be with other people. I got a dry mouth from talking. Yes, so another way to tell if you are a more quiet type is if the thumb is naturally held close to the hand. That shows a more quiet type, more reserved, and you're holding things internally. You don't like to show off. So if the thumb is more open outwardly, that represents a more outgoing, extroverted personality, and you like to be with people, and you like to show off what you have, things like that. So that is another way. You look at the angle of the thumb, look at the size of the thumb, and the thickness of the thumb. There's also the setting on where it's set. Did we have a question? Why is, I can't see the whole question, I have to. Why is double simian so different from the others? Ah, good question. Double simians, because the heart line and the head line that's normally on the hand, two separate lines, represent your emotional thinking and your logical thinking. And so if one is joined, if it's joined as one, it intensifies those thoughts. So the reason double simians are so different is because they're more intensified, they're more intense internally. So because if it's a double, your non-dominant hand might represent how you feel inside, and you might feel intense if it's on your non-dominant hand. If it's on your dominant hand, you probably also show that to the outside world. So say for instance, if you're in a room full of people, some people are quietly going about their way, and there's one person that stands out as a little bit more, I don't want to keep using the word intense, but someone who's a little bit more dominant of the scene, that's potentially someone with a double simian. But it can go the other way. There's two different types of double simians. There's the more extroverted type and the introverted type, like I was just talking about the thumb. So some double simians are super introverted, super quiet, super shy, and the others are the opposite scale, where they're not shy, they're out there attention seeking. Look at me. They want people to look at them and to see how special they are. So there's a fine line between what type of simian you are. You're either the quiet type or the outgoing type. There's usually not one perfectly in between. And the thing with the double simian is the energy that normally runs emotionally or logically alternate between, blend of both. With a double simian, you can feel either fully on or fully off. So you might one day do nothing. You want to do nothing, you just want to relax, you're off, and then the next day you might be fully on and you just do everything, like lots of energy. So the energy can fluctuate. Again, we can't just look at the simian, we have to look at the shape of the hand, we have to look at the other lines, we have to look at the lifeline. Is it a short, is it long? We have to look at the length of the fingers. They all matter in judging the double simian. But overall, double simian lines are inherited. Nowadays, people realize it is inherited. So you are inheriting that, whether it's from your parents or your grandparents or great-grandparents, but you are inheriting those simian lines. So somewhere in your family, there is a character who feels misunderstood, feels different. Not everybody agrees, but most simian lines that I have spoken to say they feel that they are different. And the simian line people in my life, I know that they are different because you have friends, you have family, and you know their personality as you get to know them. So they just are different. Anne Vu, hello Anne, thank you for asking a question. Anne Vu is asking, what does it mean when the heart line merge with the headline? Now that's very similar to simian personality. The heart line merges with the headline is almost simian. So the meaning is similar in a way that the emotions from the heart line is seeking answers from the mind, from the headline. So these people usually can't just make an emotional decision, fall in love and run off, happily ever after, so to speak. They will question their feelings. They will put a logical view to the emotional event or feeling. So often the feelings are held back. So the mind is holding back that emotion. They're connecting and not releasing and becoming fully emotional. And also vice versa, it could be that they're not allowing their logic to run and they're letting emotion to mix in with their logical decision. They're trying to make a logical decision and they make an emotional decision because the emotion is kind of overruling the logical decision. So an example could be, Simian line people do this as well, because the emotion and mind logic is basically together. Simian line people do this as well. So they might, for instance, they need to make a logical decision. That would be if you're making a purchase of something important. Say if you're making a purchase of a car, for instance. A car is pretty important. It needs to run. It needs to be a good vehicle. It needs to be registered. Needs to be roadworthy. So if you're making this logical decision and the emotion is mixing in too much, you might see this car and go, oh, I like that car. It's my favorite car. I'm going to buy that car. Does it run? Did you test it? Did you drive it? No, because you've made an emotional decision because you like the car. You go and buy the car. So that is your emotion taking over the logic that says, I should have test drove that car. You go get the car, you find out it doesn't work, it's broken. You made an emotional decision when it should have been a logical one. So that often happens with Simian line people and people that have a headline merging with the heart line. So very similar. That's good. It's helpful, Lamin. That's good. You're welcome. Any other questions? Sam. Hi, Sam. Can you talk about Mars line? Mars line from the lower mount to Jupiter. Lower Mars mount to Jupiter and the Saturn mount. Yes, okay. Well, you're just referring to, so if it's rising from the lower, this Mars, you're welcome, Anne. If you are talking about the line that rises from the Mars here to Jupiter and Saturn mount, yeah, it's not a Mars line. That's why you can't find it on my website. You will find it on my website if you look under stress lines or trauma lines, because that's what they are. It's coming from Mars, so it's a stress, and if it's rising to the Saturn mount, which is, for those that don't know, Saturn mount is under the index finger. Lines rising to there are trauma lines, and they represent a stressful period early in life. It may not necessarily be trauma, but it'll be a period where the person had early responsibility. They may have had to look after their siblings, they may have had to look after their grandmother or their mother, or do a lot of parental duties at a young age, or become responsible at a young age. So it's tapping into, Saturn is very responsible and hardworking. So if you had to be hardworking, responsible little child, that trauma line can appear. It can also appear if you actually did suffer some kind of trauma at a young age. So these lines come from occurrences from childhood. And if it just goes to Jupiter, so then it may not be as eventful. It may not be so much noticeable. So you may have had a slightly difficult childhood, but it wasn't anything traumatic. So yeah, so that's all I can say about that. And if you look up stress lines or trauma lines on my website, you will find the article there. I've got that in my book as well. Any other questions? I've started a new channel too, people. If anyone wants, I'm going to add it to the my videos. I'm going to add it to a link in the description. It's called Sari's Artworks. If anyone's interested, I'm going to start posting my art, my music, painting, wood carving. I haven't done wood carving for a little while. I do wood carving, painting. I've started playing guitar. So that's my new channel, Sari's Artworks. I'll be posting that later. You're welcome, Sam. Any other questions? How many we got? About 6 viewers online. Looks like we don't have anyone on Facebook come in. I haven't got Twitch set up yet. I can't get Twitch set up or TikTok because I don't have enough followers on there. If you have TikTok, go to find me Destiny Palmist 2, the number 2, Destiny Palmist 2. I have about 100 followers on TikTok, but I need 1,000 followers before I can do live on TikTok. Luckily, I've got over 6,000 followers here on YouTube. Any other questions, anyone? If not, I shall continue talking about the thumb. Because I started talking about the thumb. If you missed out my early conversation about the thumb, we're talking about how we can recognize the personality quickly from the thumb. And I talked about the size of the thumb matters, the length, the width. If it's a skinny, short thumb, it's a more quiet personality. If it's a bigger thumb, it's a more open, outgoing, more determined personality. And so there's also the 2 sections of the thumb. There's the upper crease, the upper part, and then the middle part. So the 2 sections of the thumb, for an average thumb, it should be approximately equal length and weight. So that's a nice thumb to be balanced. So if you have an unbalanced thumb, it means that one section or the other is bigger than the other or longer. So for instance, the top part represents your will, your determination, your self-control, your drive, your decisiveness, an ability to turn your thoughts into actions. That represents that. The bottom part represents your logic, your reasoning, your judgment, your rationality, your common sense. So that's why if your common sense and your willpower are balanced, that's a really good sign, because you can turn those thoughts into actually actions. What's a Buddha eye? Sorry, I don't use terms like Buddha eye. I've never used the word Buddha eye in palmistry ever. I know that people in different countries have different terms. If you can let me know what the Buddha eye is in more Western terms, I might be able to talk about it. But it's not something that I am aware of. Lamin, those simian lines have different, like others begin on the top of the lifeline, others begin far. Yes, Lamin, that's right. That's when the simian line is on the top of the lifeline, that is the more introverted type, because you are close to your family. It's like the lifeline is your family line. So when it's joined, you are close to your family and you depend on your family. You are dependent, at least for, depends how long it's joined for. If it's joined for about an inch, like, or 2 centimeters, 2.5 centimeters, so you're dependent for quite a while, like into your 20s. You're dependent on your family, and you tend to be very more family orientated. You tend to have a little bit more insecurity, so it shows more insecure personality. So if the lifeline begins far away from the top of, if they are separated altogether, that's the more open personality that is independent early in life. So you may have become had to look after yourself early in life. You may have had a separation from the family. There may have been a reason for you to become independent. The reason becoming independent early can vary, but in many cases it could be because the mother and the father were separated, but it's not every case. So the separation is literally showing a more risk-taking personality. You will take a risk. You will be more outgoing, more adventurous, and yeah, like I said, a little bit more of the extroverted personality. Hope that explains it to you, Lemon. And okay, we're going back to this Buddha eye. It's like an island on the top section of the thumb. Oh yeah, okay, so the actual middle crease. Yeah, okay. I didn't know they called that a Buddha eye. I have got a whole section on that Buddha eye in my latest book, in the Life and Destiny Palmistry. It's also in the second book, All the Lines. So the island on the top section of the thumb, it divides the two, logic and will. Now it ideally, which is why they call it an eye, is because it's an island. So it's a line, it opens and closes again, like an island. So that ideally is an island with no breaks and no lines interfering with it. If so, it is said to, we are all studying these lines. I've got a thumb and palm line study group on Facebook. You're welcome, Lemon. I've got a thumb and palm line study group which started all about the thumb lines. So I've got information in there as well. So the ideal perfect island is supposed to represent happy marriage, healthy body, and ability, income coming, a good income, ability for having good income. Now I've seen and been following my own thumb line. It used to be perfect and now it's not. So it changes. They do change a lot. Mine changed when I got divorced. It changed when my family changed. It changed when my children grew up. And it's still under current change, but mostly any lines that interfere with that are interference in your life. So it can represent problems in marriage, it can represent problems with money, it can, ideally, you can't specify what, because it is a little bit like guesswork, but just based on my very small study so far, the lines start breaking up as your life changes. So if you need to start looking at the line, take note, draw what it looks like, or take a photo of it and watch the line. Think about your situation now. What's your life situation now? Look at the thumb line. And if things start changing in your life, check to see if it's changing, and see how it changes along with what's happening. I don't really see it as being able to predict from it at this stage. I don't think it's reliable at all. I don't think that's reliable to make a prediction from the thumb line. Again, you can make guesses, but it's not reliable. Any other questions? How many people we got? 5. We've lost somebody. We lost a viewer. That's okay, at least it's working. Jeannie from Saturday hasn't joined me back. She seemed very upset that she couldn't hear me and I had to cancel. She was so looking forward to the live. Maybe she'll join me later. Do we have another question? Sam, have you seen any palm with multiple solid sunline and Saturn lines parallel on the mounts without any defects? Yes, defects sometimes are helpful defects. Defects can be such as other lines joining in. They can be called like interference lines, but they can also be influence lines, inspiration lines. So I have seen solid Sun and Saturn lines parallel. That means, well, it's a good sign, because that means that that person has been thinking along the same lines without interference. So once you have the Sun line and the Saturn lines represent mostly your life and your career and how you feel about it and your success. So if you are earning good income, and if you have set your goals and you stick to your goals and you think along the same lines, you have your path in life. If you have your path set on what you are doing, those lines will be clear. If you don't have an idea about your goals, and if you haven't set yourself a path, those lines will be muddled. So think about that. Take a look at your lines, and if they are not clear, ask yourself, are your motivations clear? Are your goals clear? Are you following the path that you're meant to be on? So those people with a nice, clear, solid Sun line and Saturn line, always I've seen those people have a clear path. Whether it's successful or not, it's clear to them on what they are doing. They are sticking to that path. And you're welcome, Anne. So the fine example of that is my doctor. I looked at her palm. That was an exciting moment because she had a perfect, clean Saturn line. Perfect. And she had a success line, but her Saturn line was so long and clean. And I asked her that, has she been a doctor all her life? And she goes, yes, she's been a doctor since she was very young. She got into it very young and stayed that way, and she's continuing on that path. So she had never ever diverted from being a doctor, and she's passionate about it. So it can go the other way too. I read a man's hand who was 65 and he had a perfect Saturn line, no flaws and straight up. And I said to him, what do you do? What have you done all your life? Like, he's 65 already, so he must have done a lot, but his line was so clear. I thought, is he a doctor? But no, the funny thing is, he said he has not worked for 40 years. So he only worked when he was young, and then he stopped working, and he's living off the government. So he's basically getting government payments. The funny thing about that is, yes, he had a perfect Saturn line, but that's because he had set his path. He had decided that's the path he's going to go on. He's going to go on this benefit, and he's going to stay on that benefit, and he's not going to budge. So the point of these clear lines is, are you sticking to your path, or are you diverting away from your path? And whether you've even decided on a path. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, next question. What about two faith lines starting from the moon amount and then joined together? Okay, and by faith, I assume you mean fate. Fate. I don't call them faith lines, so I don't know if that was a typo or you actually call them faith lines, but I call them fate. F-A-T-E. You're welcome, Sam. Two fate lines starting from the moon, and then they one stage joined together. Okay, yeah, that can represent two different goals, two different paths, and eventually turn into one. Sometimes those lines can be branch lines. It can represent a marriage. When they join, it can represent when you marry someone who's helps, very supportive in your life. So that can represent a marriage when they join, but it can also represent two different paths. So for instance, someone who might be a creative person, they might be a writer, but they might also have another career, and so they may have two different paths. One might be studying, could be anything. So if you have two different paths and eventually they join, that means that eventually those two careers come together. So the writing side might coincide with the job. So say, for instance, that if it was the doctor, that would mean that she maybe is using her writing and writing books about health and medical profession. You know, it's two different things in your life, could be anything, joining as one. And then if the line continues, then that's showing that they're working together. And like I said, if it's not a fate line, if I'd have to see it to know for sure, but if it was just a branch line from the moon going to the fate line, that can represent an influence. So it's an influence line, potentially marriage. But you have to look at everything else on the hand to know for sure. How's the time? 9:08. 3 viewers. We lost some people. Some people can only watch for a little while. Hi Joanne. Thank you for doing these and being generous with your time. I love the way you explain things, and you're easy and follow and quite gifted. Oh, thanks. Thanks. Yeah. I didn't realize that how many people enjoyed the lives. So I am still doing my normal videos. I've got one on the go now. I've got some photos, and I'm going to be putting the photo up, and I'm going to be explaining, but that's going to be on my regular videos for my subscribers. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell button so you get notification when I do put a new video up. I'll be putting one up probably what's today's Tuesday. I'll try and do it before Friday this week. So yeah, that'll be another interesting hand to look at. because I sometimes take people's hand pictures if they ask and do a video about their hand. Usually stick to about 10 minutes for my regular videos because people don't watch the whole thing anyway. Very rarely they watch the whole thing. Very rarely people like sitting down for an hour. But that's what I do, sitting down for an hour, asking questions, answering questions. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome, Lemon. Any other questions? I've got 2 screens in front of me. I've got an edit screen and a transition screen. I can edit and then press click. I'm learning about this software. Another question. Triradius have significant meanings on the palm mount. Triradius, yeah, they do have significant meanings on the palm mounts. They can be displaced, is where the significance comes in, because there is the standard position where the triradius sit on the palm, and if they are slightly displaced, so for instance, I haven't got my glasses. Yeah, so for instance, my triradius, if I literally can't see it, not a very good light in here. In the middle, yeah, it's in the middle here. So that's the skin ridges. If anyone doesn't know, the triradius is on the skin ridges. They are not a part of the creases. They are part of your palm print. So for instance, the triradius is a little triangle in the middle of the Jupiter mount here. On some people it might be off to the side more, or it might be inwards more. So it represents a little bit about the personality depending on where it sits on the hand. And there are standard placements, and then there are odd placements. And then there's also another one in the middle of the palm, and you're supposed to be able to make like a triangle from A to B to C, from the pinky one and across and down. And if not, if it's odd, it can represent some it can represent just some, what's the word, I don't want to say that it's bad, but it can represent that somewhere in the genes there may be some kind of mild autism or something like that. Just a slightly different personality. There's a lot to explain, and yeah, but in general, if it's around about the middle of the palm, middle of the mount, that's standard. If it's off to the side, it just represents leanings towards certain personality types. Same as your fingerprints, because the fingerprints have triradius too. If the fingerprint is a full whorl, it's going to have 2 triradius. If the fingerprint's just a loop, then there's only going to be 1 triradius. If the fingerprint is just like a mount like that, then there's no triradius at all. And those little signs represent a lot about the personality types. So I have got an article on my website on fingerprints if you're interested in looking at that. I use the fingerprints for my palm readings. They're quite important. When I do a full palm reading, I must have fingerprints. That helps a lot. And yeah, thanks for your questions. Interesting questions today. We've covered quite a bit. I can hang around for another 10-15 minutes or so if there's any more questions. Otherwise, I'll get back to talking about the thumb. And I'll talk about, for anyone who didn't hear before, I'll mention again, I've got a new channel. I'm going to put the link in the description of this video. It's called, it's YouTube, at Sari's Artworks. Sari's Artworks. I'm going to be doing my Sari's Artworks. I'm going to be doing showing my art there. I've got videos where I'm showing my wood carving. I've got videos where I'm doing my guitar playing. I'm trying to learn singing and guitar. I'm writing my own music, so I want my own channel. I've got 3 subscribers, so if you can go and subscribe to Sari's Artworks, that would be awesome. Stephanus, thank you, Stephanus. I have a double lifeline just at the bottom half near Neptune. What does that mean? So do I. So do I. Yeah. So double lifeline means exactly that, a double life. I think that means that later in life, you will have probably 2 homes or 2 different lifestyles. You might retire, for instance, and yet have a retirement place and then have another place where you go to. You might be a grandparent. You might be looking after your grandchildren or great-grandchildren, like as a second part of your life. Like, it's split. It's only on your left hand. Okay, so the left hand, it's showing more than likely you not actually have 2 separate lives. 2 separate lives, meaning that you live 2 different lifestyles, 2 different lifestyles. So maybe if it's your left hand, if that's your non-dominant hand, it means that you feel like your life is split in 2 ways, but maybe it's actually not. So mentally, you might be wanting to be having a more quiet life, or mentally you are wanting to be having a more extroverted life, going out more. So it can represent, depending on if it's parallel or if it's joined and then split. So there's different types, but the parallel lines that can show support. So if it's on your left hand, you are receiving support from somewhere for your for your inner self. So something is supporting your life, your feelings, things like that. So it's a good sign. It's obviously you do have to look at everything else on the hand, and you have to consider your age now, and you have to look at the dominant hand and see what is happening on the dominant hand and how it has changed. It's something that is going to be different on every person. So each person's situation is their own. So you look at the situation, and the likely outcome of the bottom half is that you either have 2 different mindsets, or you actually for real have 2 different places of living or ways of living. So I hope that makes sense to you. Very good. Thanks for joining. We've got 8 viewers. We have new people in. Welcome to say hi and ask a question. Some people have come in a little bit late. We've been going since 8:30. We've been going for 52 minutes, which is good. Lamin, I have 2 X's on the left hand. Well, a lot of people can have X's. You can make X's out of many of the lines, so they usually don't mean anything. But if you actually have an X that is not made up of any other lines, it depends on where it is. Left hand, so you didn't say where the X was on the left hand. But on my website, I've got crosses. I've got a article there about crosses, and it talks about the crosses on the mounts and the lines. In my book also, I've got explanations of all the X's and what they can mean on different parts of the hand. So it depends on where it is. Oh, we have a new question. Autumn Rose. Hello, Autumn. Autumn says, my lifeline on my dominant right ends in the middle and a big space, and then it continues. That pretty much what mine does too. Anyway, it ends in the middle. That means that there's a change coming around middle of life. So it could be any age, but more likely in your 40s. So I don't know how old you are now. Your left hand is a normal lifeline. Okay, so something is changing. So it's not going to affect you if it's your left hand is a normal life, and if left hand is your non-dominant hand. That means that it's not going to affect you, this change. You will still be your own path. So if it's on your dominant hand, ends in the middle, that's showing that change is coming. And even though you're saying there's a space and then it continues, it's more than likely during that space period it's using your fate line as support. So you have a look to see if it does have any fine reaching healing lines that join the fate line. If it joins the fate line, then the life line is representing a big change, more likely career related, if that makes any sense. Oh, okay, the cross. We're going back to the cross. Oh, Autumn is 57. Had a lot of health problems. 57. Okay, so maybe the health problems were why. Maybe the health problems were what they were, because if it's halfway, it looks like you've already lived through that period, so you've already passed it. So if it continues, so that space was where you were having health problems. So if it continues, it hopefully means that your health is much better now. So we have, I'll quickly go back to Lamin. He says it's in the middle of the palm between the lifeline and the fate line. Middle across there. Okay, that can represent career obstacles. So once again, I'd have to see it, but across in the middle of the palm, usually an obstacle in career around about the age of between 21 and 25, anywhere during that period. Okay, Barbara S. Welcome, Barbara. She's wanting to ask about matching length sister line curves almost as long with the line of intuition. Matching sister line curves along with the line of intuition. So you have a line of intuition. Yeah, it could be, I'd have to see it. I can't really judge. It sounds like a Mercury line. Sounds like you have a Mercury line along the, if you have an intuition line, the Mercury line is almost the same place as the intuition line. So very likely can be, one is intuition line, one is a Mercury line, or it could be a double intuition line. I can't judge without seeing it. Ronald has a black dot at the end of my headline on my right hand. Black dot, like a pencil dot, like a dint, or is it like a mole? I don't read, moles are different. But is it like a dint, like a dot? That can represent a sudden shock of sorts, mentally, sudden mental stress. But that's, again, it's at the end of the headline, so that wouldn't be related to your current time. Okay, Autumn Rose. Oh yes, it does join the fate line. Yep, okay. Yes, so if your lifeline that ends joins the fate line, that's representing that period that you went through, and the fate line is your support line. That was supporting, your fate was supporting your health condition or whatever was happening. You're welcome. Sam has a question. My passive hand fate line started from the wrist, but my passive hand started from the moon. How? Huh? Oh, I see. So your non-passive started from the moon, or the other way around. How will you interpret it? Well, it just means that whatever you decided, your fate line is your goals, your motivations, your aspirations. If you had one idea of, this is what I'm going to do, you're going to grow up, you're going to be a star, and then you didn't end up being a star, and in reality you're a factory worker or something. So it means that, yes, they're not conflicted, they are, you didn't follow your original path that you wanted to when you were young. So everyone has aspirations on what they want to do. Well, not everyone, but I assume everyone has aspirations on what they want to do with their life. And if their non-dominant hand is showing one thing and the dominant hand is showing another, it means that it didn't actualize. What you thought you were going to do, the original mindset along that path didn't happen, and your mindset changed, and it changed different. So in reality, you were actually doing something else and following a different line. So the more you think about the same lines, the more the lines become clearer. You're welcome. Like a pencil mark. Ah, Ronald. Oh, like a pencil stab. Okay. Yeah. My daughter had that. My daughter had that mark, and it was at the start of her headline though. So for me, that represented when she was young, and she did have a bit of a shocking event when she was little, when she lost a couple of her dear pets, and she was quite upset about it. And that's, for her, that was the situation. It was a sudden shock that she suddenly lost these pets. Now, so being at the end of the headline, it could be something upsetting much later in life. So something that upsets the mind, because it's on the mind line. So yeah, but I wouldn't worry too much about it, because it can simply be a broken blood vessel and mean absolutely nothing. So don't take it for granted. Don't take it seriously. Where can we get your book? Looks good. Well, this book, this is not the original. This is my printed. I originally, when I made the book, I printed from a printer. This is A4, just my own copy. I printed it before I published it, just to get a feel of it. But I ended up publishing it it's a normal book size. I didn't print it in A4. But yes, my books, I have the links in the description of this video. It should be in the description of this video. And if not, I'll add them there. So all my books are for sale in Amazon and on my website. I have a box full of books down here. I've got some myself, paperback, a couple of paperback versions, maybe a couple of hardcover versions. I don't have a lot of stock, but I do have a list on my website what I've got for sale directly from me. Like for instance, if you want a signed copy, I've got the PDF versions on my website. Amazon has Kindle book versions and paperback and hardcover. That particular picture that I brought up, that is the book called All the Lines. It's book 2, All the Lines. It's one of the favorite books because it has color pictures, has clear pictures, and it's easy to read, easy to understand. And 0707, John's back. Hi John, you've been to a couple of my live videos. What does a good sunline look like? A good sunline is usually a straight line to the ring finger, and most sunlines start at the heart line. So a good sunline starts at the heart line and rises to the ring finger. They can also have lines rising to the sun line. They're called influence lines or inspiration lines. So if it's got lines coming up to it, like tree roots, so if it looks like tree roots, that's a good sign too, because it's showing that all these ideas and inspirations are coming together and forming this nice sun line. What else we got here? What questions? Barbara, if by chance you'll get the chance, I sent a photo of hand about a month ago. Took at later on. You sent a photo a month ago. Did you send it to my email or did you send it to the page? I'll check my emails. I'll get a lot of photos sent. People send me photos, but they don't send any other information, so they get ignored because I have a lot of work. I do a lot of palm readings, and if you're just sending me a photo, it means nothing without explanation. But I can have a look, see what there is. What was that? You're welcome. Yes, it is interesting. Completely parallel 42 now. Thank you for sharing it. Right? You're welcome. What was that? What was that question? Or the double lifeline question. Oh yes, that's okay. You're welcome. Sister line or influence line could be rare. Not much info I can find. Yeah, I do have article about the intuition line if you want to have a look on my website. But yeah, I will have a look. I will have a look at your palm picture if you want to send it to me. I've got my email or contact on my website somewhere. What are we up to? I'll check my emails. How can you judge if you have a good mount on the palm? Well, a good mount is not too flat and not too bulgy. So anything extreme is extreme. Anything flat is flat. So if a person has a really big mount that sticks out but the others don't, then something is off. It means that it's not a good mount because it's extreme. But if it's a nice full mount and there's other nice full mounts all over the palm, it's showing balance. So nothing extreme. So that's a good mount if nothing is extreme. So often depends on the personality. Some personalities have a large Venus mount, for instance. Depends if they work with their hands, depends on what they think about. But if that's the only one that's large and everything else is flat, then yeah, something is out. So the judge, if you have a good mount, is you judge it against the other mounts. What are they like? If it's slightly bigger than the other mounts, that's a good sign, because it's, for instance, the Jupiter mount is often slightly bigger. Not just because we use that finger and thumb a lot, but because that represents our ambitions. So even mine, I can see it's slightly bigger than the other mounts because of my ambitious personality. So a slightly bigger mount is a good sign as well. Thumb transplant. Oh, I remember. Okay, I'll go back and find that. Yeah. Sorry, I just have so much. I have so much going on in my emails. It's a little bit overwhelming sometimes. But now I remember that story. So I'll go back and have a look at that. Autumn Rose, some kind of safe colouring that can be put on the hand to show lines more clearly. Yeah, I guess, you know, watercolour paints, like they're non-toxic normally. Like children use watercolour paints. You could try a little bit of that rubbed on. I'm not sure. Other than, you know, hand ink, which is really expensive. I don't even buy that anymore. It's just too expensive. But to show the hands more clearly, what I do is look at them after you've had a bath or shower, after you've had your hands in water for a while, not so long that they're wrinkly, but I mean just say your normal shower. The warmth of the water brings circulation through, and often the lines stand out more. So next time you jump out of your shower, just have a look at your hand in the brightness. Usually bathrooms are very bright too, good place to take a photo. Not sunlight, too bright. So if you look at your hands and if you can see all the lines, and if you have a good camera, make sure your lens is clean. Many people have fingerprints on their lens. Make sure you have a clean lens and a steady hand, and take a photo then, and often the lines are much clearer. Aha, Sam, another question. My son's palm lifeline on both hand started below the index finger. Lifeline starts below, right below the index finger. Oh, so from up high. Okay. That represents ambition. So the higher the lifeline starts, because Jupiter is ambition, so that represents ambitious personality. So more likely going to be a bit of a go-getter, and yeah, not afraid to go after his goals early in life. Like ambitious early in life is what I'm trying to say. Yes, good idea. The shower thing. Yeah. I've often looked at my hands after doing dishes or something, and I thought, oh yeah, I can see them much better. But not if they're overdone. You don't want to make more wrinkles than necessary. What's the time? 9:40. We've been going for over an hour. So unless anyone has another questions, I'm going to leave it at that for today. I'm going to go and make sure I've got my links to my books in the description of this video, and I'm going to go and add my link to my other channel. I'm going to add it after the live because I think anything in the chat disappears once it's no longer live. Thanks for joining, Autumn Rose. Thanks for joining, everybody. Can't find it anywhere. What can't you find, Sam? I've lost that conversation. Lost that conversation. But yeah, I will put some links in the description. I think the description will be there after I finish. I'm not sure. I know I've been commenting on my lives afterwards, and all your comments in the comment section disappear, but the description stays. Sometimes it's hard to find YouTube. If you're on YouTube, or oh yeah, looks like you're all on YouTube. And yeah, so the description, you have to kind of like click on it to find it because it's sort of kept tucked away. But I'm going to go and put some more info in the comments and in the description for y'all. And I appreciate you joining me today for a nice long live sesh. I'll do another one this week. I might look at in a couple of days' time. I will send a notification. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the bell button so that you get a notification. And keep an eye on your emails. If you subscribe to my newsletter on my website, I send emails out. If you're in my email list for my newsletter from the website, I send a reminder, email reminder. And I also my Facebook pages, I'm posting on there to remind when my next live is. I usually try and give at least a day's notice, sometimes 2. Okay, thank you everyone, and you're welcome. See you next time. I'm going to try and end this stream.